get started, we'll give people a moment to transition over. Happy New Year to everyone. We're live here at the Timeline HQ at the Swiss Federal Technology Institute in beautiful Switzerland. I'm joined here by Dr. Anurag Singh. Many of you probably already know him or have seen him on a podcast. He's one of the top doctors in the longevity space. We're lucky to have him as our Chief Medical Officer here at Timeline, an MD, PhD that has been doing research on longevity for over 15 years. So we thank you for everyone who pre-submitted questions. We have a long list of questions. We're very grateful for everyone, obviously this Timeline community, and that you're all very interested in our research and how we can ultimately age better and healthier. Yeah. So we always like to start these sessions with, we have to do the quick disclaimer. So while Dr. Singh is a phenomenal doctor, he is not your doctor or my doctor. So please make sure that you consult with your personal physician on any health-related topics. This is not medical advice, and Mitopure is not intended to prevent or treat any disease. We are obviously a dietary supplement. We also have a skincare product too. Okay, now that we have the disclaimer out of the way, I always like to start with a more personal question for Dr. Singh. Some of you, this may be a repeat for some of you, so if it is, I apologize. But I think you've been in this space for so long. What got you into longevity in the first place? What got you to Timeline? You've been with us for how many years now?
12 years.
Over a decade at Timeline, which is quite a timeline. What gets you excited today, 12 years later?
Yeah, I think, longevity, it is having its moment, but we started much ahead of the curve. We saw, and I trained as a medical doctor almost 25 years back. And the problem with, let's say, general medicine and healthcare was that we were treating the symptoms, very late in the aging and health trajectory, and not really thinking that it's the foundation, the problems that are laid out or happened 20, 30 years before. And so that fundamental idea drove me to spend 20 years researching. And I started really looking at old people and their immune system, and then got interested into how, in a population when you're 70 plus and you have mobility issues and you also have immune health decline, almost like a polymorbidity condition. And all roads in these 20 years I've spent lead to poor mitochondrial health. So you're declining muscle health, mobility issues. You look at 70-year-olds with those issues, it's the poor mitochondria. You look at how sick they're getting in their 70s with infections or catching all kinds of cancers. The answer is poor mitochondria. And the same with the brain now, that, so we are now looking at brain health and with aging, and all roads really lead to mitochondria. That's really what got us into studying mitochondrial health as sort of the core cellular foundational health, on which if you improve it in your 40s and 50s, you can really reap the rewards 20 years down the line in your 60s, 70s, 80s. So that's what's been driving us for the last 15 plus years or even more, doing the fundamental research, really applying the biotech principles of deep dive in the research. And we're just beginning, as they say. So
that's fabulous. And as you think about sort of 2025 and some of the biggest breakthroughs in the aging space, but also for Timeline specifically, we were the proud winners of the X Prize Health Span, sort of that first phase of this big award. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of that award and more broadly why you think it's meaningful and important, and why we're taking part in that?
Yeah, so I mean, there's massive, let's say, inflection points that happened last year in the longevity space. One is this X Prize, which is the biggest prize for longevity research, 100 million plus nonprofit sort of idea backing the 40 or top 10 now bold ideas that are going to have an impact on health span. And we've been at it so long that people really recognize the diligence of our research, B, the amazing results we've shown not only in early models of aging research, but in randomized placebo-controlled trials across different populations. And the fact, today the whole longevity research is coming to the idea that really 3 key organs will have massive impacts on human health span. One is the skeletal muscle. So your muscle is a big longevity organ. Your brain health, as we age, our ability to focus, the attention we have, the concentration, that is a key element. And I'm trained as an immunologist, and I believe the immune health, because immune cells are like sentinels patrolling all our organs, wherever there's a danger happening, that they are the 3rd key organ, the immune system as a whole. And so that was where the whole community and the X Prize came together and said, if you can show an intervention or a group of interventions that can impact in parallel all these 3 organ systems, muscle, brain, and immune health, and can reverse some of this decline in cellular health and mitochondrial health in these 3 key organs, then we recognize you for your efforts. And that's what we really have been doing for the last 15 years. We have shown for the last 10 years how Mitopure and Urolithin A really revitalizes the damaged zombie mitochondria into healthier ones. This leads to long-term benefits of improved 10%, 12% improvement in muscle strength and endurance. We had data looking at the sort of dampening effect on inflammation when you look at markers like C-reactive protein. And then we ran this big study last year, which was really one of the first studies, and we're doing more, which really showed that regular supplementation rewired the immune cells, these aged immune cells, into more youthful looking immune cells that had more mitochondria and were more ready to fight these dangers that our body is always encountering. So I think that is probably the big highlights of last year's research.
That's super, and it links nicely to some of the questions we've received here. We have customers of Timeline, where Mitopure is one of several things that they may be doing for healthy aging and supplements they may be taking. If we just think about immune, what would you say to customers that are taking vitamin C or vitamin D potentially for immune? How does this compare? I mean, how is this different? Is this an immune boost? I mean,
Yeah,
it's different here. I mean, we talk about this concept of immune fitness. What is?
Yeah. I think it's very important to again put at the foundation of good health of every cell, of every organ, mitochondrial health. So when I say immune fitness, I'm talking about the energy currency that the immune cells need to be aware of the surroundings, right? And what happens with aging in the immune system is that these sort of elite immune cells, they go away or they become very fatigued. And so around our 50s, 60s, that's when you see increased incidences of autoimmunity and cancer coming, or poor immune health, because these sentinel immune cells that we call T cells, because they're kind of educated in our organ called the thymus that goes away in our 20s and 30s, is that just because they're disappearing, our immune health has been compromised. So what we saw was that by restoring the youthful regenerative capacity of these immune cells, you could now power the whole system. So it's almost like immune decline is the stepping stone to poor health span and poor longevity. And then the rest of the cascade happens. So I think what we are doing is really identifying the early events that you need to tackle during this health span approach. So if you are into health span, you are into longevity, you of course need to do your exercise. You need to take care of your caloric intake. You need to sleep better. But there is this foundational cellular health that you need to tackle. And that's where nutrients like Mitopure help.
Yeah. What would you say in terms of, let's get into more details on immune for a second. We've got a few questions and also on the live chat here around dosing, population. So maybe tell us a little bit more about the research that we've done on immune fitness specifically. What population, I mean, were those cancer patients? What population are we talking about? What was the dose? How long for? And what would be your recommendation there?
So most of the early effects we picked up on the earlier trials were at a gram dose of Mitopure.
So how many pills is that?
So that's 4 pills or 4 gummies or 2 powders, two sessions per day. And so the trial we ran was essentially a month-long trial in average age of 55-year-olds. 60% of them were women, 40% were men. And we gave them a month-long supplementation with 1 gram of Mitopure. And we did blood draws at before they weren't on the supplement and 4 weeks after. And of course, we had a randomized trial and placebo-controlled trial, meaning we had a group that just took a placebo and that nobody knew, the active arm taking Mitopure didn't know what they were taking. And then we were able to, our bodies have about multiple trillion cells, of which 20% are these lymphocytes and T cells that just wane away, and the remaining that are left are fatigued. So the findings we find in this amazing study we just published in Nature Aging is that the first thing you see is that these cells are back to proliferating. So you see an increase in these naive stem cell youthful T cells. This is very important. Second, they have about 20% more mitochondria. Third, when you put a challenge on them, they kill the bacteria, they perform how somebody in their 30s or 40s immune cells would be performing. So it's almost like you have kind of revitalizers. You use immune fitness. Your immune fitness is about 10 years better. Yeah. So that's the key findings. And so these were healthy folks. Now the trials we are doing are in cancer patients who are doing cancer immunotherapy. A lot of these, let's say, immune therapies do not act on mitochondria. And I personally believe that by adding this as a adjunct supplementation strategy, you can actually get better outcome measures. So these are the trials we're running now in cancer patients.
Super. Just I see a note here around no sound. Just a quick sound check. Can everyone hear us okay? If you could just say yes or no on the chat. While we're waiting for, perfect, thank you. So the questions here around duration, right? So we've got dose. Let's talk a little bit more about duration. How long do I need to take this for? Does it depend on which benefit we're looking at? And will I really feel a difference? I mean, as you talk about immune fitness, for example, or muscle, let's think about muscle.
Yeah. So first, very clear, this is not a magic pill, guys. Okay. So the multiple, now we've done almost 15 plus randomized clinical trials and 2,000 plus participants. What we see is it takes a month. It takes a month to take the zombie mitochondria, these damaged mitochondria that accumulate in our cells and bodies during the aging process, whether it's the immune cells, the muscle cells, or the brain cells. It takes about a month to clear these out and replace them with healthier, newer functioning mitochondria. Okay, so now you're getting more energy, you're getting more of a better energy supply, which we call ATP. That's the currency of energy in our bodies going through the different cells. So that's, now you've readdressed the foundation. About 2 months in, the trials that we've done show that you start getting other benefits like improved endurance and better muscle strength after 4 months. We do in our trials, the medical doctors we work with, they take blood draws and they look at inflammation, chronic inflammation markers that we started to talk about it, called C-reactive protein, or even looking at blood lymphocyte counts, and we start to see them being impacted. So it's almost like your body is less inflamed, your body has better mitochondrial health, you have more energy to do what you need to be doing at a daily basis, and the physiological benefits are you have better strength and endurance. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the summary of the benefits.
So and not a miracle pill on the immune piece. We were looking at 4 weeks.
4 weeks to rewire the immune system. Now we do need to, again, I'm a trialist and an evidence-based person. We do need to do these longer trials to see if we gave it over a flu season like we are, and would we have people with less flu incidence, for example. Mm-hmm. We do know we dampen the inflammation. So at a whole body level, we do have better immune health.
And on the muscle side of things, we're looking at 4 months.
We're looking at 4 months, 2 to 4 months where the effects start kicking in. We did do trials at both the doses of 500 milligram and a gram in those. and the benefits on muscle, at least for strength, are similar at those doses.
At 4 months.
At 4 months. Now, if you are a highly endurant athlete, or you're trying to recover better, or you know that your doctor's told you you're inflamed, then I always say go with a gram. Start a month or 2 months on a gram, and then you can always get to a maintenance dose of 500 milligrams.
Let's talk a little bit about safety. We have questions here with people on statins, for example, and potentially taking other medication, or what are your thoughts on Mitopure safety profile?
Yeah, so I actually went through all the 200 questions that came in one by one. Back to your question on statins, a lot of folks are probably on statins or steroids. Now, these modern medicines, especially statins, are mitochondrial toxins. They do damage the mitochondria. They, of course, are known, they have health benefits, but they have side effects, right? So you do have 20% people on statins who will have muscle pains, they will have muscle damage. And that's where I think Mitopure really stands out, because it's a natural product, it's a natural supplement. 1/3 of us, if you're eating right, if you're eating our berries and pomegranates and nuts, we are making some levels of this natural molecule. And evolutionary, I think a lot of us did make it. It's just that with modern evolution and how our lifestyles have changed, we've lost the microbiome. So in the 2,000 plus participants and hundreds of thousands of people on it, we have very clean safety profile of this molecule.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yes, if you're on statin, you can take it. It will only help. We have not done the randomized trials where we've taken a group of people with statins and put them, and possibly, people are taking things even like GLP-1 today, right? Where there's a lot of weight loss, but also muscle loss happening. I think this is an area where probably things like Mitopure can perhaps help.
Yeah. That's obviously another question. What are your thoughts, I guess, broadly on GLP-1? There's a lot of noise, obviously, on the weight loss benefits, which are undeniable. Is that something that, from a longevity perspective, do you think that there's potential there, and then any potential benefits of Mitopure as a companion?
Well, GLP-1s are drugs that have been around for 10 years as anti-diabetics drugs, and more recently they've been, one of the side impacts has been the obesity reduction effects. And from there, they have now moved into mainstream medicine or consumer health as lifestyle drugs, where people are using them to stay in shape. And I think for 30, 40, 50-year-olds, it's okay. I worry about my 70, 80-year-old parents and that age group, because they've already lost so much muscle during the aging trajectory. We all lose about 10% of muscle every 10 years, and it accelerates after the 60s. I think that's a particularly vulnerable group. If you're going to lose 20% of your muscle, in addition to the 10% that your aging is putting on in such a rapid short time, that is, I think we will in 10, 20 years see sarcopenia being talked about a lot, mm-hmm. because I think these GLP-1 drugs. So I do think when people take these GLP-1 drugs, they should talk with their personal trainers, or they should do strength training, they should watch their diet, eat more protein. And things like Mitopure can perhaps, because there's so much metabolic imbalance happening so quickly, that things like Mitopure can help.
Yeah, super. Changing gears here, we've got a lot of pre-submitted questions. Even just simple things like, is it better to take Mitopure with food, fat, or on an empty stomach?
So we've done that. We've done the hard yards. We've done these studies where we have taken people, a cohort of folks, different age groups, given them Mitopure in a pill or a sachet in an empty stomach versus, after a heavy breakfast. The profile, Mitopure is a very stable compound. And so when you take it in about 6 to 8 hours, it will peak in your blood. Mm-hmm. So whether you're on an empty stomach or after eating a heavy meal, it doesn't really change its absorption levels and its what we call pharmacokinetics. And after about 24 hours is when we start seeing the levels decline. So it kind of works like you have to take it once a day. Now, I saw a lot of questions as well where people are saying, well, should I split the dose? Should I take my 500 milligram dose, take 250 in the morning and 250 in the afternoon? Because one pill does give you, or one gummy does give you 250 milligram, and same for a gram. Should I take 500 milligram? We have not done the trial on that particular concept, but I think it's a very viable concept that you can split the dose. Because in my opinion, if I know my clinical pharmacology, you're actually keeping the blood levels of urolithin A even higher for a much longer time by splitting the dose. So I think whatever works with your lifestyle.
But aren't you also interested in sort of that P max level?
Yeah, so that's where I go with the clinical recommendation. What we have done in our clinical trials is most of the participants, or actually every participant, takes it in a fasted state in the morning, the entire dosage.
The full dose.
The full dose. Now with the gram, I know I'm inducing that C max, as you said, maximal concentration to give that pulse to the damaged mitochondria to clean them out. But I do think that it's the entire exposure also that plays a role. So irrespective, I think if you're splitting a gram dose or pre-workout 500 and 500, you will reap the rewards.
Let's take a few questions from the live here.
Yeah, sure.
So we've got a question around, are there other supplements that work well in conjunction with Mitopure?
Great question, and a question that I get a lot. So the way to think, and I know a lot of people take a lot of supplements, so the other way to ask is how does this fit into my stack also, right? I see Mitopure as the sort of the foundation, right? If your cells are working better, if your mitochondria are working better, you will absorb all the other nutrients and vitamins and minerals that you're taking better. Now, what we do think, if you think as a mitochondrial biologist, you need to get these zombie damaged mitochondria out first. And so today in mitochondrial field, there's three strategies. Well, let's grow more healthy mitochondria. That's the NAD boosters. That's the compounds like resveratrol even. The second strategy is, well, take whatever healthy pool of mitochondria you have, things create like creatine or CoQ10, make them function better. That's another viable strategy. But unless you clean the damaged waste out and clear the real estate, you won't really get the benefits, I believe, with these other supplements. So take Mitopure and then take NAD, possible. Take Mitopure and take CoQ10, possible. But I think you'll reap better rewards if you add Mitopure to the stack, just because you're cleaning these damaged mitochondria out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. What benefits can a 75-year-old woman expect from timeline as related to autoimmune conditions like Sjögren's and others?
So, well, this gets into a bit of like a drug-related clinical trial. Sjögren's is an autoimmune condition where you have these autoantibodies causing all sorts of immune disruption in the body. We don't have clinical data on it because this will require a drug trial-like approach. But what we do know is there are research groups out there that have studied Urolithin A, which is basically Mitopure, for its effects on different autoimmune conditions, whether it's the autoimmune condition of the gut lining, something we call inflammatory bowel disease, or autoimmune condition of the neuron, something called multiple sclerosis, and they've shown some great benefits. So I think the potential is there, no harm in trying, but please consult your rheumatologist or your immunologist.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to come back to this fiber question. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about gummies. So a few questions on gummies.
Yeah.
A group of gummy skeptics, by the way, I was one of them. I guess on a couple of fronts, but most importantly, are the gummies as good as the pills? Why would I take the gummy? And am I sure that I'm absorbing the right levels of Mitopure with the gummy?
Another great question. So every product or every product version we launch is clinically tested. So when we make a new product like a gummy, we'll benchmark it to the existing products like the pill or the sachet, the the powder. And there's a concept we use called bioequivalency, which means that are we seeing the same levels of urolithin A in blood? So somebody like me will go in and take 12 or 20 people and bleed them. We'll give them one group gummies, and we'll give one group the pills containing urolithin A, and then we'll compare the blood levels. Only when they're identical will we agree to launch that product. So the gummies we have today give you almost identical levels or absorption of urolithin A that a soft gel or a powder will at the same dose.
And do you feel, just out of curiosity, do you feel that the skepticism around gummy is warranted from consumers, from people? I mean, if we look at creatine gummies, for example, do you think that's the case as well, or probiotic gummies, or gummies as a format?
So gummy is I would say a new trending format that is picking up now. You use the example of creatine. Creatine powders give great bioavailability, but where the industry jumped the hoop was they didn't really do the hard yards to compare the creatine gummy levels exposure of creatine versus the powder. And so now when they look at the creatine gummies, they find very little creatine. And that's even before they supplemented and tried to look at the levels, because in the process of making the gummies, the creatine gets converted to another downstream molecule. So there are big question marks on the gummies. Urolithin A, the beauty of urolithin A is a very robust, stable compound. So when you put it in gummies, or you put it in pills, or you put it in soft gels, or you put it in powder, it almost ends up giving identical blood exposure or absorption. So that's the benefit. The other skepticism, a lot of people are into biohacking and fasting, and they worry about breaking their fast, for example, with gummies. With pills, it's very clear. But you may want to comment, our gummies are sugar-free, right? So,
Yeah. No, there's a question here around why we chose to put stevia in the gummy versus monk fruit. And yeah, that was there were a couple of reasons for that. One of them, by the way, being that monk fruit is not legal for sale in Europe. So there is more clinical evidence on stevia, at least last time when we were working on the project. So we decided to put a very small amount, by the way, of stevia. There was another question around sort of fiber and the immune system, and I think it also links nicely to the gummies. Our gummies, in case you didn't know, our gummies actually contain a good source of fiber. So if you're looking for an extra dose of fiber, the gummies may be able to help. But yeah, any thoughts on fiber in general? I know we've had this protein craze for the last 10 years, and now it feels like we're now onto a fiber.
Yeah, I love fiber. I have seen the effects before my last 15 years studying mitochondria. I was big into microbiome, and fiber, it's like the prebiotics, what we call. So you have the prebiotics, which is the food for your gut microbiome, which is what you're trying to nourish with the probiotics. But what we do know is that fiber has immense benefits on gut health and on the immune cells that are resident in this. So I briefly glanced at the question that came in. Would combining with fiber even enhance the immune effects of Mitopure? Plausible, but again, we'll need to, the thing with fiber is you need to really hit those 20-30 gram doses of fiber. So you'll be eating a lot of gummies, I guess, in that trial. So just, our gummies at what, 3 gram or something like that, fiber?
Yeah. Okay. Let's field a couple of last questions here. So we question around, has it been tested to be safe for children?
So we have not studied that. The youngest populations we have studied is 18, 19-year-olds. In fact, we just partnered with an amazing Australian researcher who studied 18-year-old soccer players and showed that taking Mitopure helped in their fitness, and they ran longer in their soccer field. So that's the youngest population we've studied it. The pediatric, what I call from birth till 18 years, we haven't really studied it.
Yeah. What about, does Mitopure induce or inhibit metabolic enzymes that might interact with any medications?
So a lot of our trials in the last 10 years have been with older adults who are on polymedications, antihypertensives, many other supplements and multivitamins. We haven't really seen any interactions in any of these trials. Now, is there a specific class of medications that we need to watch out for? Honestly, most of our trials have sort of healthy participants. It's also difficult to delineate, but so far in the older and the middle-aged populations, nothing.
Yeah. Okay. Just to close off the question around food. So is there any difference to take it with or without food? I think the answer there is no. In our clinical studies, however, people are taking it on an empty stomach. And then a question here, or a comment rather, someone that was skeptical but felt an amazing difference after only 10 days. However, I don't feel the difference anymore. Any thoughts on that? And I guess you almost have to split that question out a little bit depending on the benefit. For example, in our immune trial, were those participants feeling the amazing rewiring and rejuvenation of the immune system? How do you think about feeling the difference?
It's a very important question, and I get that asked a lot. How do I feel, doc, that this is working? And I always say, well, you have to quantify its mitochondrial health is basically equal to more energy. So if your mitochondria are happy, you have more energy. So a lot of times people will tell me, well, I just have more energy at the end of the day, or I went to the gym and I recovered the workouts. I'm less sore and the workouts didn't feel as taxing as before. But it's really what the immune study showed is there are valid biomarkers. So if you go to your doctor for your annual lab work, and you measure things like C-reactive protein or your lymphocyte count, that's when it shows your body is more prepared to handle stress. Your body is more prepared to handle the next flu. Your body is more prepared to handle the next injury, right? So that's really sort of.
So just because you don't feel it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not working.
It's a long game, and I think it's a beautiful question. I think we missed from. I think it's Zari Karimi, who says, I've been taking it for almost 6 months and I feel great because of it. I work out much better and recover much faster. How long do I take this? I do not take any other medication. And that's really reiterating what I was saying. For some people, they may feel it in a month. Some may feel it in 2 months. We have to go by the clinical evidence we have generated looking at randomized placebo-controlled trials. In a time frame of 2 to 4 months, you'll start feeling the benefit. And as this gentleman is saying, they've been taking it. Now the question is this something I need to be taking forever or for the whole year? The beauty of this, or let's say the 15 years of research we've done, is we have identified that after things like exercise and intermittent fasting, this is probably the only way you can activate mitophagy, which is a very targeted autophagy to remove damaged mitochondria. So I always tell people, would you only do exercise for a few months and then forget about it, or only do caloric restriction for a few months? You'll get the benefits and you'll keep the benefits for a certain duration, but you always need to go back to the starting line. It's like preparing for a marathon, right? Every time it's like a new preparation.
And I think a lot of people don't know this, but maybe for the group, it would be, if you think about creatine in the clinical studies, obviously there's amazing clinical data on creatine, but a lot of those clinical studies also on protein have been done in conjunction with additional exercise and exercise routine.
I did those studies.
And I'm curious how are the Mitopure studies done and how is it different?
So all our first trials were done with no change in physical activity levels or any change in dietary habits. So just by rewiring and rejuvenating the mitochondria, in 4 months, you start to see in sort of, healthy populations that are not overtly active, you start to see these very impressive 12% improvements in strength and even better effects on endurance. Now, we were challenged and say, well, would it work with exercise? So we actually did these trials recently in healthy athletic populations, and we are not the only ones now doing these trials. There's, I believe, as I was mentioning, this brilliant researcher in Australia working with the top soccer team, or a top group working with weightlifters. They have shown that this actually augments the effects of exercise. So, you get your increase in mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning you're growing your new mitochondria with exercise, but at the same time, Mitopure is cleaning the damaged ones out and repairing them. And so you get almost like a double effect.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Okay, super. There's a question here just around back to how it really works. I mean, did you perform muscle biopsies? And then there's a lot of questions here just around long COVID and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I see a lot of questions on people who have struggling with energy conditions such as long COVID. I also read through some of the other questions on chronic fatigue syndrome and ME/CFS. Again, this gets us into more doing trials as a drug rather than a supplement, so that there's a different route to do these trials. I think from a trialist and physician scientist perspective, yes, it would be beneficial. The more sort of the energy deficient state, the more this Mitopure would be beneficial, but we need to do the trials for that specific condition. And what was the other one?
So just on that,
Yeah.
you recently got a call from our first customer, our customer number one, our first customer who has been with us now still with us.
5 years.
5 years
5
later.
years. Yeah. April 2020, I spoke to her first. She was the first person who actually purchased our product. She had an autoimmune condition of her neuromuscular muscles and her muscles. She was a former athlete, and her muscles were kind of wasting away and degenerating. And it was not a miracle. It took a while for her to see the impact on sort of maintaining her condition and getting enough energy in her muscle to be able to move around her house. And she's still on it, which is amazing. I mean, these are the amazing stories, and maybe one of these times we bring her on in this Q&A so people can hear from her.
Absolutely.
But yeah, these are, I see a lot of questions on cost, and maybe you
I'll take that. I mean, we recognize, folks, that it is an expensive product. I think it's important to recognize that we've invested over 18 years of research into this, over 25 clinical studies now.
Yeah.
And so we, of course, recognize it's expensive. We thank you for your loyalty. We are doing everything we can, and actually you can help as we scale, the more customers, the more volume we have, that is going to enable us hopefully to make this product more accessible for all of you, for all of us. I'm a Timeline Pain customer. Dr. Singh is a Timeline customer. So trust us when we say it's in all of our interests. My parents are Timeline customers. My wife's a Timeline customer. So we share that ambition. Important to note that we do have a great offer going on as we speak. So if you go onto our website today, you can save up to 40% on a Timeline subscription. So get creative. I didn't say this publicly, but share a subscription with a family member. Instead of buying 2 months, buy a 4-month and share it with a loved one, and you'll save money. And of course, we will continue to do everything we can.
One final thought to build into what Federico is saying. I also saw a lot of questions on, well, there are other Urolithin A supplements out there that are much cheaper. We've done our analysis. Leading groups have done an analysis on all these Urolithin A supplements. About 70-80% don't even have any Urolithin A. And so they're trying to go on our research that we've been doing for 15 plus years and trying to kind of put a Me Too product that probably doesn't even have Urolithin A. So go with high quality. We are the only FDA GRAS approved supplement. We are the only clinically studied supplement, not just one clinical study, as Federico was saying, multiple clinical studies. It's the only safe supplement containing Urolithin A. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a great report, by the way, independent report by a company called Subco. I encourage you all, and maybe we can share this in a follow-up email. They actually go and test many different supplements, not just Urolithin A, and they publish that. It's public information, and you'll see the different brands and where they stand. So if you're going to take Urolithin A, again, I recognize it is more expensive than some of the other alternatives, but you are ingesting this, so I would be very, very careful on other brands. So yeah, cardiologist said only timeline. That's not to cut corners on this. And I think on that last point, we talk a lot about efficacy, but again, I do want to reinforce the safety point. Even back to NAD as an example, NAD IVs being all the craze right now. What are your thoughts on trends like those?
They're trends, and they're very poorly and clinically studied. So that's where I would, wait to see more clinical data, more safety data. NAD, yes, with aging, NAD declines, but is too much NAD helpful? Also is a big question in the longevity field right now. But there is no question that poor mitochondrial health and the decline is one of the mother hallmarks of aging. And if there are ways we can improve our mitochondrial health, then that's the way forward for, let's say, one of the key ways to improve human health span. And so, yeah, I'm all in mitochondrial health.
It looks like you've got a few potential voluntary clinical studies.
Yeah, we're always running trials, and we post about them, and we can put links. We are actually just completed one of the largest clinical trials ever done on a supplement targeting cognitive health with aging. So yeah, we'll keep you guys in the loop.
What I'm curious, just to close us off, as you think about the future and other research institutes working on Urolithin A, what do you think the next frontiers are? And
to me, it's really brain aging and cognition. So we started actually as a company focused on cognition, and then we saw these remarkable effects on muscle and more recently immune. But today they're I was just looking yesterday, there are at least 150 publications last year on Urolithin A. We published 5. And so there are 145 groups now independent of us working on Urolithin A. And they're all doing really good cutting edge research. So the Buck Institute of Aging was doing it. The National Institute of Aging is investing a lot of money. In fact, one of the few interventions on health span, they're running a randomized clinical trial on it. The National Cancer Institute is running a trial with Mitopure now in folks with prostate cancer. So I think cognitive aging and the data coming out from these groups on how with aging the neurons accumulate damaged mitochondria, just from that, Mitopure is a very viable strategy, has a lot of promise to have an impact there.
Yeah. Okay. With that, I want to thank you all for your time.
Thank you, folks.
Best longevity wishes for the new year. And if you do enjoy these, please do share them. Please let us know. You can always email care@timeline.com. And Dr. Singh, thank you for your time.
Pleasure
Phenomenal resource for all of us. So thank you.
Feel free to, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Take care.